They walk among us, masters of manipulation who see people as pawns in their own complex game. You've probably met one and felt that little chill, that sense that something is off, even if you couldn't quite put a finger on it. They can be partners, colleagues, or even friends, building chaos in other people's lives while keeping a calm, calculated exterior. By the end of this video, you won't just understand their chillingly effective tactics, but you'll also know how to see them coming. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like you've been played, but you're not sure how? Or maybe you've watched someone who always seems to get exactly what they want, leaving a trail of hurt and confused people behind them. This isn't just a case of bad manners. For some, it's a strategic, psychological blueprint. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most silently destructive personality traits in modern psychology, Machiavellianism. This trait is 1/3 of a sinister-sounding trio, known as the dark triad. This framework also includes narcissism, which is all about grandiosity, and a deep need for admiration, and psychopathy, defined by impulsivity and a scary lack of remorse. But Machiavellianism is different. It's the cold, calculating, and patient predator of the group. While a narcissist needs the spotlight and a psychopath often acts on reckless impulse, the person high in Machiavellianism is happy to be the puppeteer, pulling the strings from the shadows. They're playing the long game, and the people in their lives are the pieces on the board. So how do they do it? And more importantly, how can you spot them? Section 1. The blueprint of a master manipulator. The term Machiavellianism comes from Niccolò Machiavelli, a 16th century Italian diplomat. His book, The Prince, was a guide for rulers on gaining and keeping power, famously suggesting that the ends justify the means. Fast forward to the 1970s, when psychologist Richard Christie and Florence Geis took this philosophy and turned it into a psychological construct. They used it to describe a personality trait defined by a cynical worldview, a disregard for conventional morality, and a laser focus on self-interest and manipulation. It's crucial to understand that Machiavellianism is a personality trait, not a formal mental illness or personality disorder you'd find in the DSM. Someone high in this trait, often called a high Mach, tends to believe that other people are fundamentally selfish and can't be trusted. In their mind, this cynical view of humanity gives them a green light to be deceptive and exploitative. They don't see their actions as evil. They see them as pragmatic and necessary in a dog-eat-dog world. This emotional detachment is their key advantage, allowing them to make calculated decisions that others, held back by empathy and morals, would find impossible. It's this blend of cynicism, ambition, and emotional coldness that creates a perfect storm for manipulation. They don't just get lucky, they engineer their success. And that process often starts with a disarmingly effective first impression. Section 2. Tactic 1. The charm offensive. One of the biggest misconceptions about people high in Machiavellianism is that they're always obviously sinister. The truth is, their first and most effective tool is often their charm. When a high Mach enters a new place, like a job or a social circle, they often come across as confident, engaging, and trustworthy. They use flattery, focused listening, and even share personal stories to quickly build a connection and get people to lower their guard. But this charm is a mask, carefully constructed to achieve a goal. Think of it as a data-gathering mission. While you feel like you're making a great new friend, they are busy identifying your weaknesses, your ambitions, and your insecurities. They're mapping out the social network to figure out who has influence and who might be useful down the line. This initial investment in charm pays off, creating a foundation of trust that they can exploit later. Over time, colleagues might begin to notice that something feels inauthentic as their true motives start to surface. This leads us to the very heart of their strategy. Section 3. Tactic 2. The grand chessboard. People as pawns to a Machiavellian. Relationships aren't about connection. They're about utility. They tend to see the social world as a big chessboard, where every person is a piece to be moved, sacrificed, or positioned for their own strategic gain. This is probably the most chilling aspect of the trait, a reduced capacity for effective empathy, which is the ability to feel what another person is feeling. However, they may still have high cognitive empathy, meaning they can understand emotions on an intellectual level, which makes them incredibly good at predicting how you'll react to their moves. This allows them to exploit others with a relatively clear conscience. They form alliances not based on loyalty, but on mutual benefit, and will drop that alliance the second it's no longer useful. In an office, this is the co-worker who befriends you to get details on a project, only to use that information to undermine you in a meeting. In their personal life, it might be a partner who fakes affection to get financial stability or social status. They often prioritize money, power, and winning over building a community or deep family bonds. This transactional view of humanity means they often struggle to form deep emotional attachments, because a genuine connection would turn people from objects back into subjects. Section 4. Tactic 3. The currency of deceit. For a high Mac, lying isn't a moral issue, it's a practical tool. Deception and manipulation are part of their playbook. They're skilled at using a wide range of tactics, from subtle flattery to more aggressive methods where they distort reality to make you question your own perceptions. Because they have a cynical view of human nature, they assume everyone else is just as willing to cheat to get ahead, so they don't feel much guilt about doing it themselves. This indifference to conventional morality is a cornerstone of this trait. They often operate on a pragmatic cost-benefit analysis. Will this lie get me what I want? If the answer is yes, and the risk of getting caught is low, they'll often proceed without a second thought. This can be incredibly confusing for their targets, who are usually playing with a different rulebook based on honesty and trust. The person high in Machiavellianism is always a step ahead, not necessarily because they're smarter, but because they're willing to do things most people would find repulsive. They might strategically withhold information, sabotage colleagues, and use coercion to hit their targets, all while looking perfectly innocent. Section 5. Tactic 4. The weaponization of fear. While they often start with charm, Machiavellians aren't afraid to switch to tougher tactics when needed. This echoes Niccolò Machiavelli's famous advice that while it's best to be both loved and feared, if a leader has to choose, it is much safer to be feared than loved. A person high in this trait understands that fear and instability can be powerful tools for control. At work, this might be a manager who uses intimidation, public criticism, or threats to keep employees compliant. This creates a toxic environment where people are too scared to speak up, which allows the manipulator to consolidate their power. In personal relationships, this can look like emotional blackmail, where they use your fears or insecurities against you to control what you do. They might threaten to leave, reveal a secret, or stir up drama to make sure you stay in line. They do well in environments where the rules are fuzzy and there's no clear structure, as chaos allows them to manipulate situations without getting caught easily. By keeping people off balance, they maintain their position of power. Section 6. How Machiavellianism differs from its dark triad siblings. To really get the picture, it helps to see how Machiavellianism stacks up against its dark triad siblings. Narcissism is fundamentally about ego. A narcissist's manipulation is driven by a desperate need for admiration to validate their inflated sense of self. They need to be the center of attention. Psychopathy is defined by high impulsivity, a profound lack of remorse, and often a history of antisocial behavior. Their actions can be erratic and thrill-seeking. The Machiavellian is the strategist of the trio. Their key differentiator is their ability to delay gratification and plan for the long term. They are patient and calculating, sometimes willing to work for years to achieve a goal. They don't need the constant applause a narcissist craves, and they don't have the reckless impulsivity of a psychopath. This has led some to suggest they may be particularly destructive in structured settings like corporations or political groups, where their long-term scheming can do immense damage before anyone notices. Section 7. The Shield of Awareness. How to protect yourself. Recognizing these traits is the first step, but protecting yourself is the real goal. Dealing with a highly manipulative person requires a strategic approach built on awareness and strong personal boundaries. First, trust patterns, not words. A manipulator is a master of the plausible-sounding apology. They'll say whatever they need to smooth things over, but their behavior rarely changes. Focus on their actions over time. Is there a consistent pattern of exploitation or deceit? That pattern is the truth. Second, set and enforce firm boundaries. Manipulators are experts at pushing limits to see what they can get away with. You have to be clear and consistent about what you will and will not tolerate. That means saying no and not caving when they apply pressure or guilt. Third, stay skeptical and avoid oversharing. Don't hand them the ammunition they need to use against you. Be careful about how much personal information you reveal until you're sure of someone's character. It's okay to question people's motives, especially when their charm seems too good to be true, or their requests feel self-serving. Finally, try to remain emotionally objective. A manipulator's power often comes from their ability to get an emotional reaction out of you, whether it's guilt, fear, or affection, and then exploit it. By approaching your interactions with them from a calm and logical place, you refuse to play their game by their rules. Navigating the world of complex personalities isn't easy. If this profile sounds disturbingly familiar, or if you've had an encounter with someone like this, share your experience in the comments below. Your story could be the wake-up call that someone else needs to see, and it always helps to know you're not alone. And for more deep dives into the complexities of human psychology, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's next. The Machiavellian trait allows a person to move through the world with a unique and dangerous mix of charm, strategic thinking, and a chilling indifference to the human damage they leave behind. They are proof that some of the most destructive forces aren't the loudest, but the quietest and most calculating. But understanding this trait isn't about becoming paranoid. It's about becoming more discerning. It's about learning to see past the charming mask and recognize the patterns of manipulation. Knowledge is your shield. By understanding the game, you can better protect your well-being, your career, and your relationships. Because the greatest defense against a master of the game is to refuse to play.